Hello, this is Mr. Delabruere, and today I will be playing exercise number 84, and I'll be playing it on flute, clarinet, alto sax, trumpet, and trombone. The entire fifth grade band. Sorry, bells, that's the only thing that I don't have on me. So stay tuned for all of the details on reading music and technique tips, as well as new fingerings on all of those instruments. Enjoy. Okay, I'm going to start by discussing some of the things that you'll need to focus on for reading the rhythm and some of the other details that are written in the music. Let's start with the rhythm. The time signature here, take a look at that. The 3/4 simply means that there are 3 beats in every measure, so when we're counting the beats, we're only going to go up to 3 before we reset back to 1. And everything does add up here. There are no pickups, so every measure is exactly 3 beats, and that should keep things pretty tidy. One thing to review very quickly are the dotted half notes. So the first note in the piece is a dotted half note. The dot adds half of the original value. So if we start with 2 beats is a half note, and then we add half of 2, which is 1, and it becomes 3 beats long. So the first measure is 1 big note, and it is 3 beats. Let's count the rhythm all the way through. I'm going to count it first. You're welcome to count with me both times, or you can just listen once and then count with me the second time. Or you can be lame and just listen to me count both times. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. 1 and 2, rest. 1 and 2, rest. 1 and 2, 3, 1. One small detail I want to point out, the last measure, we have end on a dotted half note, which is 3 beats. And we are going to, if you're going to try and make sure that you have exactly the right length, you'll need to count 3 full beats in your head, and you'll need to make sure that you release with silence on the following beat. So what would have been beat 1, an imaginary beat 1. So to give an example of that, the last measure would be counted as 1. And notice how I went all the way to the imaginary beat 4 that does not exist. All right. Moving on to the next reading detail, we have dynamics. So in this exercise, everyone starts at mezzo forte, which means what? Mezzo forte, it's actually a shortened version of the Italian term MF is mezzo forte. And mezzo forte, translated to English, means moderately strong or moderately loud, if you like. So we're going to start at moderately strong, and then we have this symbol. And this symbol is telling you to do what? The symbol is telling you to get louder. It's called crescendo in Italian. And so we're going to start at moderately strong. We're going to crescendo all the way to forte. The F stands for forte. Forte means strong in Italian, or loud, if that's easier for you to follow. We stay at forte for most of the exercise. And then in the second to last measure, we have this symbol, which has 2 names. Some people call it decrescendo, and some people call it diminuendo. They're both valid terms, and they both mean the same old thing, and it just tells you to get quieter. And then we're going to end at the dynamic level piano, which is soft in Italian. And the stronger, the more clear that we can make these dynamic changes, the more interesting the music will sound. I'm not sure how much it can come across in my recording. I am playing into a microphone in a small room, so that does make it more difficult to get those dynamic changes to be clear. But they make everything sound more interesting, and it does give you a great challenge on reading your music. The next general comment that I'll say about reading this exercise are the accents. In measure 3, 5, 6, we have accents. Happens to be in the forte section, and a forte accent is in some ways just slightly easier because you're already playing quite strong. So this symbol, an accent, what is it asking you to do? An accent is asking you to play with emphasis on the note. Now, more specifically, we're talking about emphasis at the beginning of the pitch. So you want to play the note starting with a strong puff of air. Something that people don't always understand is that accents aren't just a louder note, it's a note that starts louder than the rest of it. So accents are actually created by the way that you structure your air as you play, not from your tongue. So your tongue should be clear and clean just like all the time, but you're actually going to start with an extra puff of air. So if I'm going to do a wind pattern for the first 4 measures, it would sound like this, and please listen for the accent. So when you do a wind pattern, you can hear that the accent is actually quite clear because the wind itself, in my strength of breath, is actually what creates the accent. So give that a try. It's okay to pick up your instrument and just play a few accents. I'm going to pick clarinet right now. And if I'm going to play just the accented note in measure 3, it should sound like this. So not only is it louder, but I'm starting the note louder than the rest of it with an extra puff of air at the very beginning of the pitch. So once we have our rhythm, our time signature, our crescendos, dynamics, diminuendo, and accents, then I am totally up to snuff on reading our sheet music. The next part of the sheet music that I want to draw your attention to is the key signature. Normally, when I am looking at some music, the key signature is typically one of the first things that I will look at. Everyone, you should look at your own key signature right now. Okay, now I'm going to start digging into all of the new notes that instruments have. Before I do that, I just want to say, if you want to skip straight to your instrument, please check out the list of timestamps for which instrument you are looking for, and they are all right here. So if you don't want to see everything, just go ahead and find your instrument, find that place in the video, and we're golden. But for now, I'm going to start with flute. So flute. The new notes we have in here are A flats, and we have the new note high B flat. So first of all, let's start with A flat. A flat is thumb, 1, 2, 3, and your pinky. So you should have all 5 fingers of your left hand down on the flute. And one more time, I'll go real close so you can see thumb on the big flipper, and then finger. So skip that one, finger, skip that 1, 2, 3. There's your pinky. And then to finish off the A flat, we do have our pinky down at the back on our right hand, as we usually do. And that note should sound like this. So if you have your flute, you're welcome to play along and see if the pitch matches. Now, interestingly, in this exercise, flutes, you actually have both the low A flat and the high A flat. So I'm going to just give a quick demonstration about switching from low A flat to high A flat. I know I discussed this in my previous video, but I just want to make sure that I'm going with the F, low F and high F. Since you have the same fingering for the low A flat and the high A flat, it's going to all come down to your embouchure and air direction. So if you put your flute down for a second, you pick up one hand and another hand, put them like this. So you have one hand in front of your face and one hand below your chin. Now make an embouchure hole like you're going to do with the flute. And then blow that steady stream of air, very focused, onto your hand right in front of you. And you should feel it right in the palm of your hand. And now with the other hand below your chin, blow onto that hand without moving your head. So you should feel it down here now. Now blow straight forward. You should feel up here now. So you should be able to switch direction. And in fact, I'm going to do that right now. Try it yourself. So blow onto the high hand, blow onto the low hand, blow into the low hand. And if you can go back and forth, that's what's going to help you to get the high and low A flat. Now, if I put it onto the flute and use my true embouchure with the fingering for A flat that I just showed you, you should be able to switch back and forth between high A flat and low A flat. It may take some practice, but it does work. And as you can see, my fingers aren't moving. The only thing that's changing are my embouchure. One more time, I'll do a bit of a close-up so you can see clearly. So just by changing my lips and how they're shaped, I can change the direction of my air, keeping it nice and focused with nice smooth air, and that will help me switch back and forth between high A flat and low A flat, and you need both for this exercise. And just to recap, the first 4 measures should sound like. And I'm able to choose which A flat I get just with my air direction. One last thing, flutes. We do have one more high note, which is a high B flat, and that is in measure 5. So in measure 5, you have G, A flat, B. And getting the high B flat is simply a matter of keeping your air focused just like you need for the high A flat. So if you struggle with that, you can repeat the exercise I did earlier, but with B flats. And if that's a little bit difficult, you can focus on just measure 5 and slow it way down. And just play G, A flat, B flat really slowly, as many times as you need until it feels comfortable. And next up, on trombone, we are going to focus on A flats and B flats. Those are the newest notes that you may or may not have learned. And we have a low A flat, a high A flat, and a high B flat. On trombone, a low A flat and high A flat are going to have the same slide position. And use your logic right now. You already know B flat. You already know A, which is position number 2. What do you think A flat's going to be? Position 3 is going to be A flat. So, and that's both for low and high. And of course on trombone, and trumpet, in order to get the difference between a high note and a low note of the same fingering or slide position, it's all a matter of 2 things: how flexed your embouchure muscles are and how fast your air is moving. So for trombones, to play the low A flat, which is the first pitch in the exercise, I need to have a somewhat loose embouchure and somewhat smooth, somewhat slow air. And now we're going to play immediately the high A flat, still position 3. And if I play with a medium amount of air and a medium flexed embouchure, I should get what note? E flat. And we do need E flats later in the piece. There's A flat and E flat. And if I finish the cycle by going a little bit more flexed embouchure and a little bit faster air, I can get the high A flat. And for trumpet and trombone, now that we're having multiple versions of the same fingering and slide position happen pretty commonly, I recommend a small warm-up or exercise for yourself that can help you make sure that you have a good amount of control. This is how I would play that. And if you can do that, or different variations of that, that can really help. And one more note for trombone is the high B flat. It's the same exact concept as the A flat. It is position 1 all the way in, and you're just going to need a little bit of extra air. Here's the high B flat. And of course, the same exercise with low, medium, and high works with concert B flat. And next up, we've got trumpet. So trumpet, you've got a high B flat and a low B flat. Remember how I said earlier, a B natural is what you're used to playing, and that's second valve only. And now we need B flat, which is first valve. So make sure that you have B flats in this entire exercise. And we also, the second note that we're going to look at is the high C. So C, just like low C, it's all open, no valves down. But for both the high notes, we're going to need, just like trombone, to make sure we've got a little bit extra embouchure flex and a little extra air. It should sound something like this. That's the low B flat and then the high B flat. And if we're going to do C's as well, I'll play the low C and then the high C. And the only difference there is that I'm adding a little bit of embouchure flex and I'm increasing my airspeed just a little bit. The very first four measures of this piece are going to challenge you to go all the way from low B flat to high B flat. The good thing is that the crescendo is already going to be having you increase your airspeed before you get to the high note. So it all works together, and the crescendo is actually going to help your technique in this case. And I do want to take a quick second to talk about that high C as well. Again, just like for flute, and if you watch that part, you can focus on just measure 5, playing it by yourself. Just measure 5. And you're welcome to just play it super slow as well. To make sure that the high C feels somewhat comfortable. It will take some embouchure strength to make sure that you've got a clear high C. So if you haven't been practicing much, then your embouchures might be a little bit weak, and you might need to come back to this after a few days of some solid practice time, just to make sure that your muscles are in tip-top shape. If you saw the trombone section, then you'll also see that I am doing an exercise with low and high notes, and you can try this on B flat and on C. I'll do it on B flat first. That's B flat, F, and B flat, and that's all using notes of the same fingering. Do the same thing on C. And that will make sure that you have the best possible control. That might be very difficult for you right now, but if you practice towards that and use it as an exercise to challenge yourself, it will definitely help you have really good control over your entire range. And now for clarinet, I'm going to be looking at the low F, the low B flat, and the high B flat as well. So we've already played B natural. There we go. So B natural is thumb on the back, 1, 2, 3, and then your second finger on your right hand. But now we need B flat instead. So instead of using this one, we use first finger on your right hand. And that's going to be the low B flat. So unlike some of the other instruments, the low B flat and the high B flat have different fingerings on clarinet. So the high B flat is going to be like an A. So this key up here, except we're also going to add the thumb key, the teardrop shaped key right above it. And in this case, I like to call this the pinch B flat. 1, because it's a B flat, and 2, because you're actually pinching your fingers on opposite sides of the clarinet. And that kind of reminds people that you are pinching the note. You don't need to do anything crazy with your fingers. You're just pressing the keys down, but the keys are opposite each other, and those are the only keys you're playing to play high B flat. So if you switch back and forth, your fingers are going to have to move, and you can go kind of slow. And that will cover you for both the low B flat and the high B flat in this exercise. So the last note that I want to talk about is the low F. So low F from on clarinet, it's going to be thumb on the back hole, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and your pinky right here. So it's the inside track all the way down on your pinky of your right hand. Thumb, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, bottom pinky. And feel free to take your clarinet out and make sure that it matches that pitch. I'm going to play the high F, and then I'm going to go down to the low F, and you can hear that they're the same. That's another good exercise to make sure that they sound right. If you're struggling with the low F, it may be because you are not completely covering one of the holes. So do make sure that your fingers are squishing all the way down onto all of the holes, and it should come out fairly clearly for most players if that's all working for you and your reed is in good shape. The one small thing I want to add for clarinets, in measure 2 and measure 3, you're switching from a high F to a higher B flat. That is a little bit of a tricky switch, so watch closely. So on your left hand, you're going to be adding the A key, but you also need to switch your thumb from the hole to the teardrop key. So you may need to practice going back and forth slowly to get that switch to be smooth. You don't need to do anything crazy. You should, rather than picking your thumb up, you should feel like your thumb just sort of rotates this way. And that can give you a very quick motion without having to move your fingers too far. Just like how your pointer finger doesn't need to pick up and put back down again, you can just kind of lean it over to the side. Just roll it over onto the key. So that should be able to help you switch from F to B flat really cleanly. And last but far from least, we've got alto saxophone. Altos, you have F naturals in your key signature. It doesn't say that, it just doesn't say F sharp. So you need to play all of your Fs as F natural instead. You may be familiar with playing F sharp, which is 1, 2, 3, and then your second finger down here on your right hand. But we're actually going to need, instead of F sharp, we're going to need F natural. So you'll need to be using 1, 2, 3, and then 1 down here at the bottom. And that's going to give you F natural. And it's just slightly lower than the note F sharp, which we don't want. And both low F and high F are natural. The only difference between them is the octave key. So to play both my low F and high F, I'll just add the octave key. And that will certainly cover you for the low F and the high F. The only other note that we have that's new for alto sax is a high G. It's the same fingering as low G, you're just adding the octave key. I'm going to play low G and then add the octave key up to high G. And if it doesn't sound clear, make sure that you're not bumping any of these side keys by accident or any of these side keys by accident, so that way you can have a nice clear sound. And that's it for saxophone. Everything else is pretty straightforward. Well, if you've made it all the way to the end of this video, then it means that either you play saxophone or you're just cool enough to watch every single instrument's new notes, and that's awesome. I hope everyone is having a good time playing your instrument, and until next time, as always, happy practicing.